Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Great Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to live the good life. For too long, common sense principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Remember this Maryland man they kept talking about? Remember this guy? And his wife was weeping that he'd been picked up and sent to El Salvador, the prison there. By the way, he was from El Salvador, a native of El Salvador. He was here illegally. Remember him? And then we find out that more than once she filled out complaints, formal complaints about him beating her. And then we find out he actually did get due process with an administrative immigration judge and then an appeals immigration board, both of which concluded, yes, he had been, or there was enough information to suggest he had been part of MS-13. Remember all that? It got worse and worse. Remember Chris Van Hollen, the low-life senator from Maryland, who is more Islamist than American? That's right, I said it. And remember him? Went down there. I thought they were going to exchange wet kisses there for a minute. It looked like they were dating in some kind of cafe. But nonetheless, of course, later as more came out about this low-life reprobate, I don't mean Van Hollen, but perhaps, I mean the illegal alien, he said, I wasn't there to actually meet him. It was the principle of the thing, due process. Don't you love the way these scuzzballs lie? And then more information came out that the guy was a human trafficker. Wait a minute, he was? And now information is out that he was a big-time human trafficker. So Chris Van Hollen, the Democrats, the media, and one judge, they got their way. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said, let's bring that bastard back to the United States and prosecute him for his crimes. So he's coming back. But not because of the reasons Chris Van Hollen wanted him back, to let him loose in society, and not because the reasons the judge wanted him back. He didn't have due process, even though he did. No. Because he's a grotesque criminal. And if the Democrats had had their way, you'd never know about it. You'd never know about it. So first, let's hear from Chris Bondi, Mr. Producer. Cut 13. Go.
Abrego Garcia has landed in the United States to face justice. On May 21st, a grand jury in the Middle District of Tennessee returned a sealed indictment charging Abrego Garcia with alien smuggling and conspiracy to commit alien smuggling in violation of Title 8 USC 1324. We want to thank President Bukele for agreeing to return Abrego Garcia to the United States. Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant, and they agreed to return him to our country. We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like. Upon completion of his sentence, we anticipate he will be returned to his home country of El Salvador. The grand jury found that over the past 9 years, Abrego Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler of humans and children and women. He made over 100 trips, the grand jury found, smuggling people throughout our country. MS-13 members, violent gang terrorist organization members throughout our country. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled. This is especially disturbing because Abrego Garcia is also alleged with transporting minor children. The defendant traded the innocence of minor children for profit. There are even more disturbing facts that the grand jury uncovered. It is alleged this defendant is part of the same smuggling ring responsible for the death of more than 50 migrants in 2021 after the tractor trailer overturned in Mexico. This is part of that same ring. The defendant abused undocumented alien females, according to co-conspirators who were under his control while transporting them throughout our country. This defendant trafficked firearms and narcotics throughout our country on multiple occasions. They were using vehicles, SUVs, with added seats in the back, floors that had been ripped out, guns, narcotics, children, women, MS-13 members. That is what the grand jury found. A co-conspirator alleged that the defendant solicited nude photographs and videos of a minor. A co-conspirator also alleges the defendant played a role in the murder of a rival gang member's mother. These facts demonstrate Abrego Garcia is a danger to our community.
I want to salute Michael Patrick Leahy of the Tennessee Star, the CEO and editor-in-chief of Star News Digital Media. He's the one who really first broke this issue, or certainly saw it and reported on it, relating to this human trafficking. So he deserves a salute, which he'll never get except from me. Now, that said, these things move very fast, and we move on to the next subject. So I want to tap the brakes and slow down and take a look at this now. This piece of crap, this subhuman, involved in so much horror, so much monstrous activity, destroying so many lives. And the knee-jerk reaction by the Democrat Party, by their media, by their lawyers, by their judges, was that Donald Trump, the administration, they were acting like dictators, that this guy didn't have due process, that they better bring him back from El Salvador in this prison, that this guy never had his day in court, which he did, that there was no proof he was MS-13, which there was, that he was a family man, a man from Maryland, he was a wife beater. And Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, and Tim Kaine of Virginia, and Cory Booker of New Jersey, the whole conga line of reprobates, malcontents, and miscreants that call themselves Democrats, went to CNN and MSNBC, went to the New York Times and the Washington Post, went wherever they could, banging their fists on the table. This was their guy. Garcia. Just like Khalil is their guy in New York, the Hamas front leader. You ask yourselves this question: how will we ever get this under control, given that we have one party in this country that hates America? They immediately knee-jerk for the enemy. They hate us. We remember they called us neo-Nazis. We remember all this. But they immediately run to the defense of scum like this. Immediately. This guy. My question is this. All during the Biden regime, they didn't know who this guy was? It was left to the Trump administration to figure it all out. The Trump administration. I've got more to say. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Americans sent President Trump back to Washington with a mandate to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Biden's inflation, and restore American greatness. But at every turn, judges are blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill this mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been closely assessing the situation. They've been able to identify legal problems with these judges' actions and the solutions that will end this potential crisis. To see the results for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. There you'll get exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of judges limiting President Trump's moves. Stopping these judges could be the only way to protect Americans and take back our country. So go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. By the way, the Hill newspaper, none of you mostly heard of, really needs to do a better job with its little video TV thing that it puts on there. The conservative young lady whose name is, I don't remember it and is not memorable, representing conservative views, they were discussing a split between Chatsworth Osborne Jr. and me. And apparently she works at the Daily Caller, which of course was founded by Chatsworth. And her idea of conservatism was so bizarre, and her discussion about my stance was so pathetic. I just love it when these Neanderthal isolationists claim to represent my view, Mr. Producer. They don't even, it's as if they either don't understand it or they choose to distort it. Anyway, that's just a little footnote. Charles Koch, by the way, again, another footnote, is a radical libertarian billionaire, multi-billionaire. His father was one of the active members of the, I forget what that group was called. Anyway, I'll remember later. But in any event, John Birch Society. And his views are really minority view throughout society. He used to believe in open borders. They've tried to sort of camouflage that a little bit. Did not believe in a strong national security, national defense. They tried to disguise that a little bit. There are people who wanted to run ads on this program, and I said, no, you're not going to buy me. What do you think? This is Qatar or something, Mr. Producer? I never told you that, did I, Rich? I said, no. No. So, but Charles Koch's people from the Quincy Institute and another front group he set up, they're getting hired throughout the administration. I don't even think the president's aware of this. I don't know. I call Charles Koch's people cokeheads. Those are like zombies. I've told you many times, foreign policy, national security is about prudence, not ideology. But these are ideologues. American lasters, isolationists. Really, John Birch Society types, if you want to throw back to that. And they overlap and join mindsets and ideologies with the radical left. So in many instances, they'll have the same position as a Bernie Sanders or even a Tlaib. an Omar, an AOC. They've come full circle. Just like we see in the streets the Marxists and the Islamists, we see here in our politics the cokeheads and the Democrat socialists. That's why when they set up this Quincy Institute, George Soros and Charles Koch put up the millions of dollars to start it. Well, the graduates of this institute and another institute Koch started, they train these sort of fanatics. They don't really think for themselves. They learn to paint by the numbers. And they are insinuating themselves or being insinuated throughout the national security apparatus in the executive branch. And more people are noticing this, including in Congress and so forth. Again, their views are very radical. They're very extreme. They're sort of niche, not representative of the American people as a whole. But there they are. Oh, you must be of the old school. Yeah, I'm of the old school, where we defeated the Soviet Union. That school. Where we eliminated communism pretty much from the continent of Africa, Angola and so forth. That school. The same school that so many good, solid, patriotic, smart people are still in and have been in. But let's continue. So the Democrat Party opens our borders, brings in every kind of sleazeball imaginable from every corner of the earth. They lie to us and say the border's secure. Then they lie to us and say it's not secure because it's Trump's fault. And now they embrace every single lowlife who was caught and who this president and his administration are trying to deport. And the media embrace them too. It is amazing that this republic is still alive. It really is. Given how corrupt our media are, given how they're so in sync with the Democrat Party, they're incestuous, given the fact that they both support this massive, centralized, bloated government, which in so many ways is unconstitutional, given the fact that they've loaded up our court system with these rogue judges. And by the way, we've got a number of Supreme Court decisions where people are happy with. This is the low-hanging fruit. The heavy-duty decisions are coming in the next week or two, and we'll just see how unanimous the court is on this. They may be unanimous in the wrong direction. We'll see. Like birthright citizenship, I've spent 20 years arguing this issue, debating this issue, writing about this issue, discussing it on TV, discussing it online, discussing it on radio. 20 years. From a legal perspective, yours truly was the first to challenge the whole notion of birthright citizenship, even in my book, Men in Black, my first book. It was concocted out of thin air, and yet the Democrats are right behind it. Oh, yeah. DACA, which is utterly unconstitutional. It was supposed to be a temporary program. They made it permanent. Democrats are behind it. Wanting to get illegal aliens off of Medicaid so American citizens have access to it. Democrat Party calls that cutting Medicaid. They're against removing illegal aliens from Medicaid. So this is a suicidal party that wants to drag the rest of us with it. I'll be right back. Folks, are you concerned about the growing number of judges blocking President Trump's executive orders? Well, if you're not, you should be. Every time a nationwide injunction is handed down by one of these judges, it's the American people who lose. Now, the Heritage Foundation has the policy solutions to stop these threats to our judicial system. Go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Get your free copy of the How to Stop Activist Judges ebook. Now, this resource breaks down what these activist judges are doing wrong, why it matters, and how, under the Constitution, they can be stopped. It's not just President Trump's agenda that's at stake. It's the safety of Americans and the future of our nation. So go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your free ebook today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Liberty's voice, Mark Levin. Talk with that voice. Now, 877-381-3811.
Two great shows this weekend, Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. Set your DVR. Hope you can watch it live either way. 8 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday. They got two great shows for you, so I hope you'll check in. Jamie Raskin. Now, this is a lowlife who appears everywhere because he's a lowlife. And the way they get hits. You know, even lowlifes have to watch somebody on TV, I guess. And he's had a shadow hearing today, whatever that means. Shadow hearing. So here we are trying to remove these vile, poisonous, sickening individuals from our country. The things that they do to other people. This guy Garcia even trafficked young children. So why doesn't Van Hollen resign and apologize? Instead, he twists it. Why doesn't every Democrat that went down there, every Democrat that came to this man's defense, resign? Everybody in the media who came to this man's defense, resign. Oh, no, you don't understand. It's a bigger issue, Mark. It's due process. Donald Trump is acting like Hitler. Jamie Raskin is a Stalinist. His father was a Stalinist. His father supported the Soviet Union. So bad was this clown that basically the Democrat Party excommunicated his father. He started the Institute for Policy Studies, a well-known front organization for the enemy. That's right. I said it. And this punk moves around TV studios, radio studios, the floors of Congress. He's involved in impeaching Donald Trump twice. He's on the January 6th committee. There he is. This reprobate. Just like Talib, an Islamist. Omar, an Islamist. Bernie Sanders, another commie. They are what they are. Here he is today. Raskin, cut 10, go.
Basically, what we've got is a situation where we have an established asylum process that people are going through. And then the Trump administration is just ravaging the process by saying, we're going to pull people out of that. We're going to charge them under the Alien Enemies Act, which requires there to be a war. But there's no war. But even under the Alien Enemies Act, there should be some due process, right? Didn't one of the judges on the D.C. Circuit say Nazi war criminals or Nazis in the country were at least given due process hearings? All right,
let me explain how Nazis in the country were given due process hearings. In Ray Quirin was the case. The Supreme Court. This guy used to teach constitutional law. Do you know that, Mr. Producer? I have always said, which one, ours or the Soviet Union's? So they caught Nazis who were coming up the coast. They caught them off New Jersey. And FDR directed his attorney general, I think there were half a dozen, give or take, to seek the death penalty. FDR was intimately involved in this. You know, the great FDR, Mr. Dictator himself, the great FDR. And some of them did get the death penalty. One or two of them. And they were put to death in a period of months. Wow, that's real due process there. And once you remember what happened in that Manhattan courtroom, don't ever forget it. The Republican nominee for president, did he get due process in the Manhattan courtroom? What did Jamie the Red Raskin say back then? What did he say? They were celebrating this, right? So a mass murder, or a guy who's selling little kids into slavery, all that, due process. Donald Trump, no due process. We don't need lectures from bastards like this punk. No, we don't. And then there he is. Even the Nazis got due process. Really? So this was the case. I want to be specific about it. 1942. Ex parte Quirin. Q-U-I-R-I-N. You can look it up yourselves. United States Supreme Court. During World War II, it upheld the jurisdiction of the United States Military Tribunal over the trial of 8 German saboteurs in the United States. 8. The 8 men were involved in the case were Ernest Peter Berger. Doesn't matter. Berger and Haupt were U.S. citizens, so 2 of the 8 were U.S. citizens. Nazis, though. All were born in Germany, all lived in the United States, all returned to Germany between 33 and 41 to serve Deutschland. After the declaration of war between the United States and Nazi Germany in December 1941, they received training at a sabotage school near Berlin, where they were instructed on the use of explosives and methods of secret writing. 4 of them traveled from occupied France by U-202 to Long Island, landing in the hours of darkness on June 1942. The remaining 4 boarded the German submarine, which carried them from France to Ponte Verde Beach, Florida. On June 1642, they came ashore during the hours of darkness. All 8 wore full or partial German military uniforms. So if they were captured upon landing, they would be entitled to prisoner of war status, rather than being treated as spies. The Long Island group was noticed by Coast Guard beach patrolman John Cullen, whom the saboteurs attempted to bribe with $260. Cullen returned to his station and sounded the alarm. The 2 groups promptly disposed of their uniforms, proceeded to civilian dress to New York City and Jacksonville, Florida. From there to other points in the United States. All had received instructions in Germany from an officer of the German High Command to destroy war industries and other key targets in the United States. Upon landing, 2 of them turned themselves into the FBI with some difficulty, since the FBI didn't believe them immediately. They convinced the FBI they were telling the truth. The remaining 6 were taken into custody in New York and Chicago. The FBI had no leads until, well, it doesn't matter. On July 1942, I'm trying to see the timeline here for you. So June 13, 1942, they land. July 1942, less than 1 month later, FDR issues Executive Proclamation 2561. He establishes a military tribunal. Can you imagine if we did that today, Mr. Producer? What do you mean, a military tribunal? The left and the Democrats argued against that when it came to the terrorists on 9/11. But specifically a military court to prosecute these Germans. 7-member military commission. They were charged with a number of violations. From July 8 to August 1, the trial took place. So you understand, folks, a month after they were captured, 1 month, they were on trial. And the trial took place on the 5th floor of the Department of Justice building in Washington, D.C. The 5th floor, on August 1942, 2 days after the trial ended, all 8 were found guilty and sentenced to death. But they got due process, right, Jamie? Right, Jamie, you schmuck. Roosevelt later commuted the death sentence of Dash to 30 years in prison, Berger to life in prison, as they had both confessed and assisted in capturing the others. The remaining 6 were executed in the electric chair on the 3rd floor of the District of Columbia Jail on August 8th and buried in a potter's field called Blue Plains in the Anacostia area of Washington. So you understand, they were captured in July, Mr. Producer, and they were executed 2 months later. But Jamie Raskin points to that as an example of due process. Why? Because he's a Stalinist pig. That's why. Now, I have no problem with that, but he points to that as an example of the kind of due process the Nazis even got. Because he's a moron. Throughout the trial, Roosevelt's decision of creating a military tribunal to prosecute these Germans was challenged by a defense lawyer who was appointed to defend them. He said Roosevelt, this guy's name was Royale, he said Roosevelt had no right to create a military tribunal to try his clients. It didn't matter. Went up to the Supreme Court very fast, and the Supreme Court said, too bad, do it. Wow. I wonder what the court would do today. On July 31, Supreme Court unanimously denied the appeal, writing the military commission was lawfully constituted. Petitioners are held in lawful custody for the trial before the military commission and have not shown cause for being discharged by writ of habeas corpus. Everything was denied them. Everything. And Jamie Raskin points to this. Again, I have no problem with this, but Jamie Raskin is claiming, we need due process like they had. Even the Nazis had due process, you moron. This is why he won't come on the show, America. See, he can say these things anywhere else and nobody will challenge him. This is why he won't come on the show. And so now that you know the background again, let's play this clip again, Mr. Producer. Cut 10, okay? Cut 10, go.
Basically, what we've got is a situation where we have an established asylum process that people are going through, and then the Trump administration is just ravaging the process by saying, we're going to pull people out of that. We're going to charge them under the Alien Enemies Act, which requires there to be a war. But there's no war. But even under the Alien Enemies Act, there should be some due process, right? Didn't one of the judges on the D.C. Circuit say Nazi...
Yeah, another genius, a leftist, Biden appointed on the D.C. Circuit, pointing to this Quirin case. They're so stupid. They don't even know what they're doing. Go ahead.
Nazis in the country were at least given due process hearings.
Yeah, okay,
under
that's
the alien.
enough. Now you know the guy's as dumb as a doorknob. He just is. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Americans sent President Trump back to Washington with a mandate to solve the border crisis, reverse the effects of Biden's inflation, and restore American greatness. But at every turn, judges are blocking President Trump's attempts to fulfill this mandate. The Heritage Foundation has been closely assessing the situation. They've been able to identify legal problems with these judges' actions and the solutions that will end this potential crisis. To see the results for yourself, go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. There you'll get exclusive access to the Heritage Foundation's guide to solving the problem of judges limiting President Trump's moves. Stopping these judges could be the only way to protect Americans and take back our country. So go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your copy today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. By the way, he says at the beginning of this, basically what we've got is a situation where we have an established asylum process. Do you know what asylum is, ladies and gentlemen? You have to demonstrate that if you return to your country, you will be persecuted or your life will be endangered. And so what the slip and fall immigration lawyers, almost all Democrats, have told individuals, even MS-13, even as Venezuelan gang members, rapists, murderers, whatever you want to call some of these people, whatever they are, they claim asylum. So they go through this process while they're waiting in the United States. And so when the administration actually finds people who have been found guilty of murder overseas or things of that sort, they pull them out of line. They say, no. You're abusing the asylum process. We're going to deal with this now. So Raskin says you shouldn't be able to do that, but you are able to do that. Now, I want to remind you, in this case where six were executed out of the 8 Nazis who were found, they were captured sometime in June 1942. They went before a military tribunal that was set up on July 2nd, 1942. They went on trial 6 days later. Boy, they had prep time. July 8 to August 1, 1942. All 8 were found guilty. 2 of them were given a reduced sentence by FDR. 6 of them were executed in the electric chair in Washington, D.C. That's how fast that happened. 3 months. Actually, less. And Jamie Raskin points to that. And there they are, the tongues hanging out, the people interview them. You're right, they had due process. The Nazis have due process. Look at Trump. He wanted to give this guy Garcia due process. That's because he's trafficking in thousands of human beings. These people are sick. They are sick. They look for reasons to oppose law and order. They look for reasons to destroy our society and our security. Raskin, you coward. You dumb bastard. You can come on this program. You can come on this program anytime. I've told you that before. You and that jerk, Bernie Sanders. And the other jerk, AOC. And the other jerk, Tlaib. And the other jerk, Omar. Here, free speech. But I guess not. They go to their sanctuaries, MSNBC and CNN. They talk about civil liberties. The Stalinists and the Islamists talk about civil liberties. Isn't that funny? Let's see here if we can find this. Yes. Oh, yes. Right here in Texas. I mean, I'm not in Texas, but here in the United States of America, from our friends at Blaze Media. Candace Hathaway, excellent. Pro-Hamas thugs shut down Israel summit in Texas with vile threats. This is a wake-up call for Americans. I would encourage maybe Joe Rogan every now and then to cover something like this, Mr. Producer. What do you think? Joey? What do you think, Joey? Anti-Semitic threats and acts of violence in the U.S. are surging amid the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine, fueled by supporters of the terrorist group Hamas. And such threats push organizers of an annual pro-Israel gathering in Texas to abruptly and indefinitely postpone their event. This is in America, in Texas. The Israel summit hosted by Hayaval and a media initiative, the Israel Guys, was scheduled to be held in Dallas, Texas from June 9 to 11. They expected to host over 1,000 attendees, but instead announced this week that it would postpone the summit after the organization received numerous threats from American pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas groups. Luke Hilton, the chief operating officer, told Blaze News the heightened threat levels forced the organization to switch venues twice mere days before the event. He said indirect and direct threats were issued both against our organization, the Israel Summit, and against the venue who were hosting us. The organization estimated that the overwhelming security burden would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hayavel highlighted the sobering reality that peaceful pro-Israel gatherings in America increasingly require extraordinary security measures to remain viable. Got that, folks? I'm sure Chatsworth Osborne Jr. will do an hour or two on that one. No doubt in my mind. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. There's an urgent alert that I want to alert you to that's been released by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Homeland Security. It's alert number I060525-2-PSA, public service announcement. Recent attacks highlighted elevated threat to Israeli and Jewish communities. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, is this the 1930s? What the hell's going on here? Summary. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Homeland Security are issuing this public service announcement to highlight potential public safety concerns related to ongoing threats to Jewish and Israeli communities. The threat: June 2025, an individual approached several people at a pro-Israel gathering in Boulder, Colorado, threw 2 Molotov cocktails at the group, injuring at least 9 people. This attack followed a separate attack in late May 2025, which an individual shot and killed 2 Israeli embassy staffers after they attended an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. The Capitol Jewish Museum attacker allegedly cited Israel's treatment of the Palestinian people when taken into custody. The ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict may motivate other violent extremists and hate crime perpetrators with similar grievances to conduct violence against Jews and Israeli communities and their supporters. Foreign terrorist organizations also may try to exploit narratives related to the conflict to inspire the attacks in the United States. The FBI and DHS therefore urge the public to remain vigilant and to report any threats of violence or suspicious activity to law enforcement. Isn't it interesting? All the violence goes one way, isn't it? You don't see Jews going around killing Indians, do you? Gosh, I tell you. Wow. Then you have these pro-Hamas Nazi thugs shutting down this event in Texas that's taken place for years. For years. And incidentally, for the phonies, frauds, and fools in the media, some of whom I know, who report about how the Israelis are not feeding the Palestinians. Let's get one thing straight as a baseline. When you're attacked by an enemy, you don't feed them while you're trying to defeat them. In fact, we've never done that, ever. When we were attacked, we not only attacked the military of the other country, we attacked civilian centers of other countries. Maybe you've heard of World War II. But the Israelis, they don't do that. And they're accused of it anyway when they're fighting terrorists who kill their own people. So there's new information out tonight that the Israeli government, working with our government, are getting food directly to the Gazans and bypassing Hamas. Hamas stole 70 to 90% of all the food that would go into Gaza. Now, these reporters, so-called, who are hired by our media outlets, they know this. And so now 85 to 90% of the food that the Israelis, with the assistance, the technical assistance, working with the United States, that they're getting into Gaza is getting to the people there. And Hamas is furious. And you actually have, on record, Gazans saying things like, I didn't know that the food was free. I didn't know that the food was free. Now, you're not going to hear this from Chatsworth. You're not going to hear this from the usual circles. You're not going to read it in most places. You won't hear it all weekend. You won't hear it on CNN and MSNBC. They've built corporations promoting lies. You won't hear it from the Holocaust-denying New York Slimes or Washington Compost. And by the way, it's not the Saudi Arabians feeding the Gazans. It's not the Qataris feeding the Gazans. It's not the Iranians feeding the Gazans. It's not the Egyptians feeding the Gazans. It's not the Jordanians feeding the Gazans. It's the Jews, the Israelis. Ooh, do tell. Amazing, isn't it? And so now we have a public service announcement from our government that if you're a Jew or if you're an Israeli, you better look over your shoulder. If you're going to temple, and by now many Jews are there, you better look over your shoulder. In the United States of America, this is what open borders gets you. This is what a lousy, rotten, bloodlust press gets you. This is what the Democrat Party gets you. A public service announcement from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. Concerns related to ongoing threats to Jewish people and Israeli communities. I mean, good God. What has this become, Mr. Producer? It's crazy that people even have to worry about this stuff in the United States of America. Oh, due process, freedom of speech. People don't even know what they're talking about. They don't even know what they're talking about. Oh, look at this, says Raskin the Stalinist. We pull them out of the asylum lines and we deport them. What a sick bastard. There's no reason to defend terrorists and their mouthpieces. No reason whatsoever. No reason to defend terrorists and their mouthpieces. That's right. That's right. Let's see here. I'm looking for something in particular. I've got so many articles here. Bear with me one second. Let's see here. I don't think I can find it in time. All right, let's move on. Now, Iran is very interested in domestic nuclear energy, ladies and gentlemen. Very interested in it. And there have been notable stories, like from Yahoo here. Iran orders thousands of tons of ballistic missile ingredients from China. Oh. You mean you can use ballistic missiles for home heating and home air conditioning? I didn't even know this. Did you know this, Rich? Wow. Chatsworth Osborne Jr. said, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I think I should call him a Helen Keller. Maybe Ray Charles. Iran orders thousands of tons of ballistic missile ingredients from China. Well, let's dig into this. Sources estimated that if delivered, the materials could produce around 800 missiles. 800 ballistic missiles. These are ballistic missiles. They already have hundreds of ballistic missiles, so maybe they have thousands. You know what that means? Israel can't defend itself. That's what it means. Their Iron Dome can't handle hundreds of ballistic missiles. The Communist Chinese not. So why are the Communist Chinese working with the Islamist Iranians? The same reason why the Marxists and the Islamists in our streets are working together. To destroy the state of Israel, to destroy the West and the United States. And then we have the enemy within, the mouthpieces within, who are the special pleaders for the enemy. It goes on. Iran has ordered thousands of tons of ballistic missile ingredients from Communist China as part of an effort to rebuild its military capabilities while navigating ongoing nuclear talks with the United States. They're dragging their feet. They're dragging their feet. It's rope-a-dope. The North Koreans did it. But this is different. They've already attacked Israel through their surrogates and directly. And they keep talking about blowing us off the face of the earth. He must be a warmonger. Shipments, which are expected to reach Iran in the coming months, include ammonium perchlorate. I don't know how to pronounce it. Perchlorata. Yeah, perchlorate. A key component in the solid propellant used for ballistic missiles. They could potentially fuel hundreds of missiles. And some of it is expected to be sent to militias aligned with Iran. You hearing this from Yahoo News? You hear this? Including the Houthis in Yemen. One of the sources revealed this move aligns with Iran's broader strategy to strengthen its regional influence and rebuild its missile arsenal while continuing to negotiate with the Trump administration over the future of its nuclear program. So, at the same time, they're slow-walking us. They're building up their ballistic missiles to a point where Israel will not have the capacity to defend itself. They are super, hyper trying to complete their nuclear program. Unbelievable. Can't we find a diplomatic way to fix this? Sure, they'll talk. Who do we want to send there? Anybody else? Sure. Please, let's talk. The Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran, they want peace. Don't you understand? They want to protect and save their people who they slaughter, torture, rape. Sure, they're all about the people there. And then we have people in this country who give aid and comfort to the enemy. And there's a substantial number of people that follow them because they're fooled by them. According to sources, the order for the missile ingredients was placed in recent months by an Iranian entity. The material was sourced from Hong Kong, a company that did not respond to requests for comment. The Iranian mission to the United States also declined to comment. Well, what are they going to do? Oh, you caught us? In a statement, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesman denied knowledge of the deal. You know, the shipment is part of Iran's broader efforts to rebuild its so-called axis of resistance network, which includes a number of terror proxies across the region. These groups have faced significant setbacks over recent years. Let's just set it out. Thanks to Netanyahu and the Israeli military. Netanyahu and the conservative government that comes under blistering attack by our media, by the Biden regime, by the Democrats, by the fifth column isolationists. They want Netanyahu out because he's the Churchill of Israel. That's why. While U.S. and Israeli strikes have damaged the Houthis' capabilities in Yemen, they continue to periodically launch missiles at Israel. That's because we didn't include them in any deal, of course. By supporting regional militias, Iran has also reportedly transferred ballistic missiles to Shia militia groups in Iraq. Now, let me ask you something. If they're busy transferring ballistic missiles to their friends, nothing's going to stop them from transferring nuclear warheads and nuclear bombs of different sorts to their friends. Will it? Will it? You know, we Americans are intelligent. We Americans are rational. We Americans don't usually succumb to propagandists and demagogues and grifters. And we ought not to now. And there's plenty of them. Oh, we have a podcaster. And we have I don't know what you call the other jerk. I don't know. What is that platform he's got? I don't even know. That Chatsworth has. I don't know. Is that subscription? I don't know. Do you know, Rich? Okay, thanks for telling me. What are you eating, a steak sandwich or something? Okay. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. The truth about humanitarian aid in Gaza. Much has been discussed about the urgent need among Gazans. While Israelis have sent their sons and daughters to fight the Hamas terrorists, and many of them have died, Israel's simultaneously been providing humanitarian aid, 70 to 90% of which was stolen by Hamas. So they're sending their young men and women into Gaza. Many of them are being killed as a percentage of the population. Nobody even talks about the IDF soldiers who are killed, as if they don't exist. Nobody even cares. They put their lives on the line to even feed the Gazans, Palestinians, Hamasians, whatever you want to call them. I'm waiting for Jake Tapper to do a show on that. Or again, maybe our friend Joe Rogan can help us out with that. No? What do you think, Mr. B? You think you'd ever go there and check it out? You should go there and check it out. I've never been to the UFC. Maybe I'll do that. And he can go over to Israel and see what he's talking about. I think that would be pretty cool, don't you? And I say that as a very positive thought, not a criticism at all, because who would criticize him? Who would criticize him? Certainly not me. Our great thinkers of the time. Great thinkers. Okay, trying to figure out what I have here. I have lost that again? Rich, what the hell's going on with me here? Yes, send it to me again. Let me see here. Sorry, folks. Got it here, got it here. Oh, the anniversary today. I certainly don't want to get off the air today without mentioning the D-Day. D-Day. The major effort to push back against the Nazis. If we'd failed on D-Day, we would have lost World War II. That's the likely truth. We would have lost World War II. And those men who rushed the shoreline, came across these dug-in heavy artillery of the Nazis as they climbed the cliffs. Unbelievable. It's like to say, am I going to go to war? 67, 68-year-olds don't. But I'd be members to his. Or General Keane. Or so many great veterans, patriots, even active duty and reservists, who agree that Iran should never get a nuclear weapon. I don't know. My mother's father fought in Iwo Jima in Guam. It seemed pretty rough. My mother's uncle, my great-uncle, he fought at Guadalcanal. That seemed pretty rough. Just mentioning this. Other family members, too. I don't have to prove my patriotism. This isn't the 1930s Third Reich. Americans have opinions and they're free to express them. Not just one group expressing them, but all of us expressing them. I'll be right back. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, a proud fanatic for the Constitution. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
I see here a politics exclusive at the New York Post, one of our favorite newspapers here. And a White House staffer went on a revenge tour against Elon Musk, fanning flames with Trump while bragging about Tesla stock drop. And I read it. This is your typical hit job, just so you understand. I get hit from this stuff. I don't even know where it's coming from half the time. And it's your typical hit stuff. Now, at the center of this story is a gentleman by the name of Jared Isaacman, who was a nominee to head NASA, apparently recommended by Musk. And so the media are spinning this, Democrats are spinning this, and so forth as, so they pulled this guy at the last minute, you see, to get at Musk. But that's not what happened. See, the Democrats wanted this guy. And then when they actually looked into his background, they found they gave $100,000 to the Senate Majority PAC in 2021 that was aligned with Chuck Schumer, $50,000 in 2022 to Josh Shapiro's gubernatorial race, $10,000 to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee in 2022, $10,000 to the Democrat Party of Pennsylvania in 2024, July 2024, and $10,000 to the Michigan Democratic State Central Committee. So they found this out, that the guy had donated to Schumer and Slotkin and Mark Kelly and Shapiro never gave a penny to Trump until after the election. And so they looked at this and they said, oops. And apparently they pulled the guy. And so there's been an effort to tie this somehow to a war with Elon Musk. Is one of the reasons Musk is upset. And the media pushed this. The Democrats wanted this guy desperately. I don't know him. I'm just looking at the data. So this has nothing to do with revenge. I'm reading this piece in the New York Post. Top White House aide is taking the blame for helping trigger President Trump's fiery clash with Elon Musk. Sergio Gore, who I know, Mr. Producer knows, Trump's director of presidential personnel, was instrumental in the president's decision late Saturday to yank the nomination of Musk's personal friend Jared Isaacman to be NASA administrator. But it had nothing to do with that. I'm looking at the numbers. And so he never gave to Trump until after the election. And so this is basic stuff. So if you're a billionaire, you're a big businessman, and you take it personally, this is basic stuff. And sometimes the information comes in slowly. Sometimes you don't have the information. I used to work in presidential personnel under Reagan. I wasn't the director, but I was an associate director, and I handled, among other things, judges. And we would look at a number of things. And I also handled other senior positions, cabinet and sub-cabinet positions. And you get a lot of stuff pouring in. You got 3,300 or so, 3,500 positions to fill. You've got these top positions, not just cabinet and sub-cabinet, but senior executive positions. They just stack up, and you're looking at and sometimes you catch something, and whoa, who's this guy? And I suspect that's exactly what happened here. So he's coming up for a vote, and the administration pulled the guy. Pulled him. And so I think to use this as an example of the hits on Musk is bullcrap. Bullcrap. So I just want to point that out. I don't know about all these other appointments. I'm just talking about this NASA guy because I went and dug it up myself. I happen to like Sergio Gore. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of yours, isn't he, Rich? Friend of the family. People seem to think he's in there doing hit jobs for this group or this individual or that individual. He's doing what he's directed to do. That's the job as director of presidential personnel. You're not an independent actor. You're not an independent player. They're senior people who make decisions on the priorities and so on. Again, I know this because I used to work in that office a few decades back under President Reagan. I'm concerned that this is another guy they want to take out who's a conservative. That worries me. But these are the facts. I wouldn't want this guy to be heading NASA either. The Democrats are all upset. They're leaking to their favorite outlets. And some of the people who want to create this tension between Musk and Trump, they're trying to exploit this as well. But this is a clear-cut case, this guy at NASA. And I understand, because I've read, that he's friends with Elon Musk, but Elon Musk should not take this personally. I mean, that's who the guy is. I just pulled up all of his contributions, Mr. Producer. If it were the Reagan administration, same thing would happen. A guy like that would not be the head of NASA. It wouldn't happen. A guy like that wouldn't have a GS-13 job in the Reagan administration. It just wouldn't happen. I'm picking a bone with those who are trying to blow out the National Security Council and put all these Charles Koch heads in there. And that's not a presidential personnel decision. That is the decision of the people who are running the NSC, I assume. I assume. You got another Koch head going over to the Pentagon. They're all over the damn place. And Koch never supported Trump. As a matter of fact, he came out against Trump. So none of the people associated with Koch and Soros and the Quincy Institute and so forth should be getting any jobs in the administration. But again, when you're talking about White House positions and White House staff, that's not what the Presidential Personnel Office deals with. I know how, because I used to work there. That's how I know. But if I had been running PPO and I saw this guy, nothing personal, Isaacson or whatever his name is, with giving hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to Democrats and so forth, and only to Trump after the election, I would have recommended yanking him myself. Absolutely, 100%. Doesn't matter who recommended him. That's a big damn job, NASA. A big job. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because of all the stuff I look at the New York Post, I look at the more conservative publications, and so this one kind of shocked me in the New York Post with their exclusive. There's really nothing exclusive about it, I would argue, but that's a simple case. Guy's a huge Dem, billionaire, has given hundreds of thousands of dollars to left-wing Democrats, gave nothing to Trump until after the election, and they probably finally pulled it all together and said, okay, no, we're not going through with this. And Musk may have gotten very upset about it. I mean, I'm not there with all the intrigue, but I'm assuming that's what happened. But on the merits, the guy should not be a NASA administrator under a Republican administration, period. And again, under the Reagan administration, he wouldn't have been. And under the Trump administration, he's not going to be. It shouldn't be that controversial. I think they're gunning for Gore. I think that's what's going on. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. Please don't forget, 8 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday night. Set your DVRs. We got 2 fantastic shows, fantastic guests, and, of course, me. Just to reiterate, I'm looking at this hit piece in one of my favorite newspapers, the New York Post, which is really a multiple hit job on Sergio Gore. Many of you may not know who he is. He's the head of presidential personnel. And a lot of people blame him for what's going on at the National Security Council. He has nothing to say or do about that. Again, I know because I used to serve in that office under Reagan. So anything that happens in the building proper. He's not the decision maker. There are people who are in charge of the NSC. There's people in charge of this part, that part, the other part, and so forth and so on. Cabinet secretaries have a lot of power, particularly in the bigger departments and agencies like State, the Pentagon, things of that sort. And I have a number of concerns about these Charles Cokeheads, but not about Sergio. I've just known him too long and too well, and this is clearly a hit job. The head of NASA should never have been offered to this guy, and I'm sure they did the paperwork. They got the hundreds of thousands of dollars to Democrats, left-wing Democrats, Democrat institutions, and only some money to Trump after the election. You know, we don't need that. And he's a friend of Elon Musk, and that's great. Look, I have some Democrat. Actually, I don't think I do have any Democrat friends, but that's okay. He does. That's great. He's a big-time Democrat, or was. But decisions have to be made. So they're trying to turn that into part of this debate, this fight. That's part of the slight that took place here, because that has nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with anything. He's a Democrat that gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to Democrats. There's no controversy, in my humble opinion. But the knives are out. That's the way it works in every administration, unfortunately. The knives are out. The purists, they want to cleanse the operations. I have some ideas about who's doing what, who's involved in what. I really do. I have some ideas about this. I mean, it's not really my portfolio because I'm here doing other things, but I do have some ideas about this. A bipartisan House group insists on no enrichment for Iran. The overwhelming majority of Republicans in the House, including the overwhelming majority of the Freedom Caucus, the most conservative unit within there, have said no enrichment for Iran. Every Republican except Rand Paul has said no enrichment for Iran. Iran keeps saying, yes, we're going to enrich. Yes, just at a lower level. And there's all this talk about, well, maybe we'll have a sort of a committee on an island that'll oversee their enrichment. These are terrorist bastards. They're already working with the communist Chinese for more missile systems to overwhelm Israel and the Iron Dome. That's what the article says. That's what it says. And then they want nuclear weapons. And what happens then when they arm Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah and God knows what else comes? The Iraqis. And then they have a nuclear warhead. I'm supposed to sit here and listen to the morons who go on and on, the isolationists, the fifth columnists? The warmongers are our enemies. The warmongers are the Islamists. The warmongers are the communist Chinese, the fascistic Russians. I don't know why these people love these fascists and these Islamists. But that's their problem. That's their mental issues that they seek to project onto this society. And as long as I have a breath, I will fight them, the enemy within, and I will fight the enemy without. Why? Because I love this country. You in the audience, I know you love this country, and we'll do everything we can to defend it. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. That's right. It's the anniversary of D-Day. And our stellar Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was at Normandy today. And he had some really, I think, important things to say. So I wanted to play a little bit of it for you. Here he is. Cut 14. Go, please.
81 years ago, Hitler thought his Atlantic Wall was impenetrable. Many agreed. He clearly had not met enough Americans. A more daring assault had never been planned. The task was daunting, a frontal assault across the channel on beaches and cliffs strewn with obstacles and defended by heavily fortified bunkers. Our only advantage was that the enemy underestimated the strength of the Allied war cause. The invasion would include brave troops from the U.S., Great Britain, Canada, France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Belgium, Norway, Poland, Greece, and Holland. On the ground, the French resistance covertly aided the effort. And as the troops loaded into their ships, planes, and landing craft, they received copies of an order from General Eisenhower, reminding them of the stakes of their mission. I have a copy right here. He wrote, "You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one." He ends by writing, "And let us all beseech the blessings of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking." Now that's a mission statement if I've ever heard one.
It's beautiful. Let's listen to one more clip. Cut 15, go.
Because we strive for peace, we must prepare for war and hopefully deter it. We must ensure that our children and our grandchildren know what these men did, that they understand. I used to say, and it's a cozy thing to tell ourselves, especially after World War II, that they fought so that their kids and grandkids won't have to. And in some cases, that was true. But in most cases, they fought and we fight knowing that our kids and grandkids will have to be willing to do the same as well. Because history is not over. Evil has not been eradicated from the globe. Good men are still needed to stand up. America will require such men. The world will require such men. And therefore, we must teach our kids and grandkids to understand, to remember, and to live worthy. Our world is a better place when Europe and America are strong, free, and independent. France understands this well, and so do the men buried here, and so do the men sitting before me. Our nations together have endured a bond intertwined by history, and we share this hallowed ground underneath our feet, dedicated and consecrated by the blood of our heroes. Our moment today is an echo. It's an echo of theirs. And may we live worthy of them. It is truly one of the honors of a lifetime to commemorate the sacrifices of D-Day and celebrate the freedoms of our two nations.
And for those who don't know, most of you do, but there are a few, a little summary of the D-Day invasion. Cut 16, go.
Well, D-Day was obviously the most important single fight of that war. And, of course, had we lost it, there's no telling what the outcome would have been.
Since the American entry into the war, American generals had been agitating for an opportunity to fight the Germans directly. The D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944, represented the cutting edge of this offensive.
Essential condition that underwrote the success of D-Day was the fact that Germany had been bled virtually to death by fighting on the Eastern Front for several years against the Red Army in the Soviet Union before D-Day ever happened.
The Germans had been preparing for this invasion as long as the Americans and the British had been, and they had been digging in. And they knew that they could inflict appalling casualties on the first units ashore. Well, somebody had to do it. And so the soldiers went, and indeed, those first units did suffer very high rates of death and wounding.
There's one thing to go on a beach with sand dunes. It's something else when you've got enemy on top of these bluffs. And for some reason, naval gunnery was either off or something went wrong there. They couldn't destroy those gun emplacements.
But eventually, the weight of the invasion took hold. The numbers of Americans, the numbers of craft, allowed the Americans and the British to establish a beachhead. And once they established a beachhead, then they could bring more and more soldiers and equipment ashore.
One thing I don't think either the Japanese or the Germans really counted on was what it meant to come up against a massive capitalist industrial power. The ability to build stuff on a massive scale with massive numbers was just something they hadn't really anticipated.
If you look back at the old photographs and the footage of that armada out there off the coast, I don't think they've ever assembled before, after, anything like that.
Eventually, it was the technology, it was the weight of American weapons that tipped the balance. But at the very beginning, it was the soldiers, the ones who splashed ashore, the ones who knew that in the first wave, lots and lots of them would never come back. And those are the ones who made possible everything that followed.
The Rangers who went in first and the waves that came after them stood right up to it. And there was more bravery that day than one can hardly imagine.
Unbelievable. Truly. Let's take a listen to what Reagan had to say in 1984, and then after the break, we'll hear what President Trump had to say a few years back. Cut 17, go.
40 summers have passed since the battle that you fought here. You were young the day you took these cliffs. Some of you were hardly more than boys with the deepest joys of life before you. Yet you risked everything here. Why? Why did you do it? Well, what impelled you to put aside the instinct for self-preservation and risk your lives to take these cliffs? What inspired all the men of the armies that met here? We look at you and somehow we know the answer. It was faith and belief. It was loyalty and love. The men of Normandy had faith that what they were doing was right, faith that they fought for all humanity, faith that a just God would grant them mercy on this beachhead or on the next. It was the deep knowledge, and pray God we have not lost it, that there is a profound moral difference between the use of force for liberation and the use of force for conquest. You were here to liberate, not to conquer, and so you and those others did not doubt your cause, and you were right not to doubt. You all knew that some things are worth dying for. One's country is worth dying for, and democracy is worth dying for because it's the most deeply honorable form of government ever devised by man. All of you loved liberty. All of you were willing to fight tyranny, and you knew the people of your countries were behind you. The Americans who fought here that morning knew word of the invasion was spreading through the darkness back home. They fought or felt in their hearts, though they couldn't know in fact, that in Georgia, they were filling the churches at 4 a.m. In Kansas, they were kneeling on their porches and praying. And in Philadelphia, they were ringing the Liberty Bell. Something else helped the men of D-Day. Their rock-hard belief that Providence would have a great hand in the events that would unfold here. That God was an ally in this great cause. And so the night before the invasion, when Colonel Wolverton asked his parachute troops to kneel with him in prayer, he told them, "Do not bow your heads, but look up so you can see God and ask his blessing in what we are about to do." Also that night, General Matthew Ridgway on his cot, listening in the darkness for the promise God made to Joshua, "I will not fail thee nor forsake thee." These are the things that impelled them. These are the things that shaped the unity of the Allies. When the war was over, there were lives to be rebuilt and governments to be returned to the people. There were nations to be reborn. Above all, there was a new peace to be assured. These were huge and daunting tasks, but the Allies summoned strength from the faith, belief, loyalty, and love of those who fell here. They rebuilt a new Europe together. There was first a great reconciliation among those who had been enemies, all of whom had suffered so greatly. The United States did its part, creating the Marshall Plan to help rebuild our allies and our former enemies. The Marshall Plan led to the Atlantic Alliance, a great alliance that serves to this day as our shield for freedom, for prosperity, and for peace. In spite of our great efforts and successes, not all that followed the end of the war was happy or planned. Some liberated countries were lost. The great sadness of this loss echoes down to our own time in the streets of Warsaw, Prague, and East Berlin. The Soviet troops that came to the center of this continent did not leave when peace came. They're still there, uninvited, unwanted, unyielding, almost 40 years after the war. Because of this, Allied forces still stand on this continent. Today, as 40 years ago, our armies are here for only one purpose: to protect and defend democracy. The only territories we hold are memorials like this one and graveyards where our heroes rest. We in America have learned bitter lessons from 2 world wars. It is better to be here ready to protect the peace than to take blind shelter across the sea, rushing to respond only after freedom is lost. We've learned that isolationism never was and never will be an acceptable response to tyrannical governments with expansionist intent. But we try always to be prepared for peace, prepared to deter aggression, prepared to negotiate the reduction of arms, and yes, prepared to reach out again in the spirit of reconciliation. In truth, there is no reconciliation we would welcome more than a reconciliation with the Soviet Union, so together we can lessen the risks of war now and forever.
We have time. I want to go with Donald Trump now. Go ahead.
They battled not for control and domination, but for liberty, democracy, and self-rule. They pressed on for love and home and country, the main streets, the schoolyards, the churches, and neighbors, the families and communities that gave us men such as these. They were sustained by the confidence that America can do anything because we are a noble nation with a virtuous people praying to a righteous God. The exceptional might came from a truly exceptional spirit. The abundance of courage came from an abundance of faith. The great deeds of an army came from the great depths of their love. As they confronted their fate, the Americans and the Allies placed themselves into the palm of God's hand. The men behind me will tell you that they are just the lucky ones. As one of them recently put it, all the heroes are buried here. But we know what these men did. We knew how brave they were. They came here and saved freedom. And then they went home and showed us all what freedom is all about. The American sons and daughters who saw us to victory were no less extraordinary in peace. They built families. They built industries. They built a national culture that inspired the entire world. In the decades that followed, America defeated communism, secured civil rights, revolutionized science, launched a man to the moon, and then kept on pushing to new frontiers. And today, America is stronger than ever before.
Mark Levin.
Heard Reagan there specifically reject isolationism because he knew, as everybody knew at that time, how destructive the isolationist movement was. It allowed Hitler to build up, Tojo to build up. It allowed Mussolini to build up. And then you reach a point where it's an all-out war. If Iran's free to build up its ballistic missile inventory into the thousands, if it's free to build up nuclear warheads, how devastating that would and could be, America. I may be one of the only voices, I'm not alone, there are a few others, but not many, with this kind of a platform to bang the pots and pans, to be the warning, to be the alarm that we needed in the 1930s and we need today. Isolationism will result in our destruction. We must deal with Iran because Iran plans to deal with us. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the Great One.
The Great One, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
When is Father's Day is like 9 days away. 9 days away. I'm sure you're going to do something beautiful for your father, your husband, your grandfather, and so forth. I just want to make a suggestion. On Power. So I want you to get in the front of the line, get the best discount possible at Amazon.com. And the day comes, and there it is. It shows up for your husband, your father, your grandfather. It's priced right. It's $23.99, 11% off. And here's the deal, as I've told you before. You get the best discount they offer by July 29th when you get the book. So if they knock it off 40, 45%, and often they do, that's the discount you'll get. It's really de minimis when you consider what it costs for a dinner or a lunch or anything of that kind. I'm not opposed to going to dinner or lunch. I'm just saying this really is, it's really worth the value. It's worth the value. So go to Amazon.com, just punch in On Power. You'll see my name pop up. And I think you're going to find this whole issue of power, the way I discuss it, the way it hasn't been discussed really in modern times, and apply it to so many different aspects of your life. You're going to look at things, I think, a lot differently and a lot better. In this whole debate about our history, our rights, our liberty, and so forth, I just concluded that even though we've been looking at it in a very wholesome and smart way, there's a big gap. A big gap. There is no liberty if power isn't properly applied. There are no rights if power isn't properly applied. And there's all kinds of aspects to this, whether it's the use of language, the use of words, the use of what I call negative power, positive power, what I call negative language, positive language. You'll see, I break it up into pieces, and I think you're going to really appreciate it. So we very much look forward to your participation. I just feel with Father's Day coming up, maybe that's a good motivation, no? I think it would be. And by the way, when I get the first copy, I'll do a little video and post it for you folks. That's what I'll do. Jim, Chicago, Illinois, the great WLS. Jim, how are you, sir?
Great, Mark. I've purchased signed copies of your previous books, other than Men in Black. I didn't catch that one back for my kids. So it would lead on, go forward to my future generations. Hey,
now I hate to say this, there aren't going to be a whole lot of signed copies, except at a few signed book signings, 3 of them total, which I'll announce shortly. But I won't be doing a whole bunch of advanced signed books. Very unlikely. So I'm just hoping people will jump in, grab your pre-order, and have that book show up. And I know you're going to love this book. You're going to love it, Jim. Go right ahead.
All right. 2 things. One is that the solid rocket propellant, that your the oxidizer is sodium perchlorate or ammonium perchlorate. All right. That's the pronunciation of it. And it's used. Iran is moving to move their ICBMs to solid rocket propellant, because if you have liquid fuel, people with satellites can detect that they're staging for a launch. Okay, and there's a delay time, so they want to be able to just put a match to this thing and set it off. Right? Holy mackerel. And that's the way they're moving. So, yeah, it's not good. But the second thing is that the Islamic Nazis, that regime tried to take out Donald Trump, as far as I know. And if there's proof of that, they should be eliminated. All right?
Well, there is proof. There's absolute proof of it. And the people they wanted to prosecute are no longer in the country.
Well, the people that drove it.
Yeah, the hit was put out by the regime. Absolutely, you're right.
By the regime. The regime has to be wiped out. You know, it's like they drew the line. All right, they crossed the line. You try to take out the leader of our nation, and that goes both ways. All right. So that's my.
In the old days, that wouldn't even be debatable. But now we have these reprobates who seem to think that there really is an evil in the world, that we're the evil, and that if we don't shut up and sit down and cover our faces and put hearing plug in our ears, then we're responsible for what takes place. It's really quite sick. And then they call themselves American firsters. They're American lasters. That's what they are. All right, my brother. Thank you for your call. We always appreciate excellent calls. All right, here, Mr. Producer. Who do you recommend, Rich? Who do you recommend? Lake Tahoe, California, XM Satellite. Was that Mark, Mr. Producer? Go right ahead, Mark.
Good evening, Mark. Great show as always.
Thank you.
By the way, I bought your book. I paid full price. I'm looking forward to it. I always learn a lot.
Well, you'll get a discount when they discount it even more. You'll get at least 11%, but you'll get more than that. But thank you. I know you're going to love it.
You had a very moving tribute to D-Day today, and I wanted to point out something that very few people talk about, and that is that the June the 6th was only the beginning of the Battle of Normandy.
Mm-hmm.
And between June the 6th and August the 21st, 33,000 Americans were killed in action.
It's unbelievable.
Before we drove the Germans out of the Falaise Gap. 33,000 were killed, not wounded, KIA. So God bless those soldiers. God bless you. And I hope people remember that was only the beginning. That's not to minimize what they did on that day heroically, but that was only the beginning.
And this is what Reagan meant about isolationism, how dangerous it is, because they dug in. They basically had an open path as they kept building up their industrial military might, building their alliances, taking this, taking that. I mean, you look right now, Iran has hundreds, if not thousands, of these ballistic missiles, and the communist Chinese are going to help them make another 800 to 1,000. The Israelis can't possibly stop all these ballistic missiles. You heard what the gentleman just said before. They're changing it from a liquid to the solid fuel, so the Israelis can't even pick up by satellite when they're getting ready to fire these missiles. And so this is even before they have nuclear warheads. You can imagine what will happen to the Middle East and beyond the Middle East if one of these countries gets a nuclear weapon. Not only are you going to have the massive proliferation of nuclear weapons that we have so far done an okay job of controlling since that genie was let out of the bottle, but you're going to have literal regimes that want to destroy the United States and the West, and the Israelis, of course, with nuclear weapons that they can overwhelm their enemies with when they have all these ballistic missiles and intercontinental ballistic missiles. Look, this isn't an ideological thing with me. This is just common sense. Whether it's this or anything else, I sit down, I look at the facts, I digest them, I work them through my brain, I use history and experience, I look at the technology, I look at who we're dealing with, and I come up with a conclusion. And I don't know how anybody really legitimately, unless they're ideologues, and that's the problem, can come up with the conclusion that it's okay if the Iranian regime has a nuclear weapon, and that somehow, for the first time ever, they will honor a written agreement. Now, this threatens the United States of America. It threatens our children and grandchildren and our entire society. These are weapons that can do the kind of destruction that we've never even seen on this earth before, even putting aside the atomic bombs. Thank you for your call, my friend. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's go to Archie. And Brian is at, I guess that's Arkansas. Brian, Arkansas, Karn. Brian, how are you?
I'm good.
I mean,
Mark,
Archie, how are you? I apologize.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Archie, you go right ahead.
I'm on my Pure Talk phone. Thank you, sir. Great
Got
company.
it, baby. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be quick. First point, today, I would hope our soldiers and our military would have the same fortitude those kids and young men did 81 years ago. That was just, you're going in 50-50, you may not make it out.
That's right. You may not make it out. You're right.
And I'm an old Southern redneck. I am not Jewish, but according to the enemy, I guess I'm a Zionist because I support Israel and their right to exist.
Thank you. And by the way, so do 84% of our fellow Americans. Go right ahead.
And I heard this river of the sea. Well, that's a two-way street. Israel could push them river to the sea, and that's 25 miles of beachfront property that I guarantee President Trump could make a resort out of. So, I mean, and
what you're saying is so interesting to me, because what's interesting about what you're saying is Israel has nuclear weapons. They don't admit it. They have the capacity to blow that part of the world off the face of the earth, and yet nobody thinks they will because they won't. But the same can't be said about the Iranians or the other terrorists, can it, Archie? Archie, great call. Call again, buddy. In America every Friday in honor of you. friends, don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Life, Liberty, and Levin. We'd love you to watch. We do that program for you, and they are two great shows this weekend. So check them out. Take a little trip over to Amazon. Please pre-order your copies of On Power for Father's Day in particular. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers. Good night, Spritey and Griffey. Good night, Pepsi and Smokey. Good night, Zelda and Indy and Patton and Rory. Good night, Gigi and Marty and little Barney. You never forget these little boys. Good night, Dad. Been thinking about you and Mom a lot lately. Good night, Mom. Good night, Leo. Good night, Joe. Good night, Teddy. Good night, Lou. Good night, Bernard. Good night, so many great Patriots who have passed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.